As in anything in life, when we do something, we're either doing it because of Sattva, Rajas, or Tamas. Now these are terms that everyone in the Hindu philosophical yoga world is familiar with these words. However, these words are usually thrown around a little bit loosely. And since we're talking about astrology, which is a perfect science, although a perfect science that we understand imperfectly, but since we're talking about a perfect science, which is handed down in the perfect language of Sanskrit, which is no longer spoken, we really need to use the perfect meanings of any of the Sanskrit words that we use. And one of those, or three of those, is Sattva, Rajas, and Tamas. These words are used in general, the way they're kind of loosely thrown around. There's nothing wrong with that, but for astrology we have to use the pure meanings of the word. But they're loosely thrown around in the sense that Sattva are doing the good and noble and spiritual things, such as meditating, giving charity, helping others. Tamas is getting drunk, womanizing, sleeping around. And Rajas is chasing desires. That's kind of the loosely. So if we say he's really rajasic, that means he wants to fulfill his desires, he wants to make money and buy a bigger house. The Sattva guy just wants to meditate all day. And the Tamasic guy has a bottle and a woman. Okay? That's how those terms are sort of thrown around. Well, that's not what they mean. So I want you to forget those loosely thrown around ideas of Sattva, Rajas, and Tamas, so I can teach you and we can talk about the real meaning of these words. Now what Sattva, Rajas, and Tamas are, they're the three gunas. What's a guna? It's like a string. And in life, we're getting pulled around. I'm pulled to go meditate. I feel this pulling. I'm pulled to go see an astrologer. I'm pulled to approach this woman, right? You know, you feel the pull in life. Well, that's the guna, that's the string, pulling you towards this. And that string is either Sattva, Rajas, or Tamas. Now, it's that pull that motivates us to act, right? You know? I got this motivation, a pull to go meditate. I got this motivation, this pull to hit on this chick. I got this motivation, pull to make as much money as I can this year. Okay? So these gunas are the motivation with which we do something. That's what they truly are, the motivation. And in astrology, the planet Sun and the planet Jupiter and the planet Moon are considered to be sattvic. Mars is Tamasic or Tamas. Saturn or Tamas. Mercury and Venus are Rajas. So a lot of people think, oh, your Saturn and Mars are strong, you're just into negative things. And your Sun, Jupiter, and Moon is strong, you're into noble things. Bullshit. Doesn't happen that way. Okay? These are the activating qualities, what motivates us to act. So for example, I'm going to get up every morning. And when I get up, I can get up for lots of reasons. Okay? I may get out of bed really quickly and jump out of bed because my house is burning down. Right? If I don't get out of my bed, my house is going to burn down and I'm going to die. Right? Well, that's what Tamas is. It's the pull to do something that if you don't do it, you're going to suffer. Okay, that's why the two cruel planets, Mars and Saturn, are Tamas. Because they're the planets that if we don't do something about, they're going to hurt us. If we don't pull our guns and shoot that guy who's trying to shoot us, we're dead, right? If we don't struggle to survive through Saturn, we die, right? So Mars and Saturn, anytime we do anything, because if we don't, we're going to suffer, we're getting motivated by Tamas. The pull to do it is so that I don't suffer. The number one reason people meditate and do spirituality is because if they don't do it, they're depressed. I'm depressed, I gotta go meditate. My motivation for meditating, my motivation is overcoming my depression. My motivation for exercising is to overcome my heart disease. My motivation for exercising is so I can be happier and get endorphins in my head. those are all tamasic motivations. So anytime we do anything to remove ourselves from an element of suffering and pain and destruction is tamas. That's what tamas is, the pull to do something, because if we don't, we'll suffer. Okay? Sattva is the pull to do something because we're simply inspired to do it. It just comes from our own nature, our swadharma, which Krishna says we have to follow our swadharma if we want to find God and happiness and peace. Which is, we have to follow our inner own inspirations. So someone like Paramahansa Yogananda had a great life, was always inspired towards God. Just more than anything, just wanted to have a taste of God. He was fully inspired from that, even at a young age. Okay? Now he also had some tamasic motivation. He suffered dramatically when his mother died. Okay? And he wanted solace from that, and that helped fuel his spiritual urge. So Yogananda had both. He had a heartache from his mother dying, but also an inspiration to seek God. Okay? Anytime you do anything out of inspiration, it's just a natural thing that's going to flourish within you and just due to your own nature, that's sattva. Okay? Sometimes that's to meditate all day long. You're just totally inspired to do it. You're not doing it because you're miserable and want to be happy. You crave meditation, you crave contact with God, and you only want God's love. That's a sattvic motivation for doing spirituality. A tamasic motivation might be, I'm so scared of death. I'm freaking out that I'm going to die. So I'm going to meditate so I don't have to suffer the pains of death. That's a tamasic motivation for meditation. Okay? So that's what sattva and tamas are. Those are the two extreme motivations. We're either inspired to do it, or we do it because not doing it causes suffering. What's the difference? There appears to be no difference at this point. We can meditate to avoid suffering, or we can meditate because all we're inspired to is God. Okay? Or we can go to work so we don't starve and don't get thrown out of an apartment. Or, which is tamas, or we can go to work because we're just so inspired to do the work that even if we don't need the money, we're still going to do it. Okay? We're so inspired that we're still going to do it 40 plus hours a week, even if we didn't need the money. That's sattva going to work. What's the difference? Well, the difference is tamas, the pull ends once you're out of danger. So once you've escaped the burning house, there's no more reason to act, right? Once you've gotten enough money to put a roof over your head permanently and have enough money for food the rest of your life, there's no reason to go to work anymore. You're not going to starve and you're not going to be homeless, so why work? So tamas motivation only pulls us as long as that negative possibility exists, or as long as we fear that negative possibility. So if a person meditates, for instance, out of fear of death, and they get to a point where death no longer fears them, they no longer have a motivation to meditate, unless they've acquired a sattvic motivation. So tamas only keeps us motivated as long as the need is there to avoid pain and suffering. So a lot of people, they get into the spirituality after very difficult periods of life. And they're totally hurting units. They get into the spirituality and they start feeling better. And they overcome that pain and they say, oh, this religion, this meditation, etc. saved me. Or learning astrology saved me. And then they stop. Okay? Because once the pain's gone, they don't progress anymore. There's no more motivation. So that's why we see a lot of people get into a spiritual life for a few years, and then they kind of settle into it. And they don't really make progress anymore because they've overcome the pain, but the true desire for God, the inner inspiration is not truly there. So they just meditate enough to avoid the pains of depression and negative thinking. Okay? That's why so many truth seekers, after a couple of years, their motivation really goes down. Sattva is something once we start, we always do it. Because it's what we're inspired to. It's the result of our soul stirrings within us. It's the divine inspiration placed within all of us. Okay? It's that need to follow our own instinctive nature of who we really are in our lives, in whatever that is. And therefore, that thing always lasts. Okay? That thing always lasts. We always want to do it more. So a sattvic person who's working because they're pulled, because they're just so inspired to do that work, even when they don't need the money, they keep working. Like, you think of some of these authors, they write a best-selling trilogy, and they're making a few $1 million off this trilogy, and they're going to make $500,000 a year for the next 30 years because it's such a successful series of books. They don't need to write another book. They're set for life. But what do? They go and write another book because they're so inspired to write. They can't help themselves. They're going to write until they die. That's a sattvic motivation. So the only thing that makes sattva better than tamas is that it's something you're always going to have motivation to do. Whereas tamas, you're only motivated to do it as long as the possibility of suffering exists. Okay? Or as long as you fear that suffering. So a person might meditate because they're scared of death, and once they overcome the fear of death, their motivation to meditate may be less. Because they're not scared anymore of dying. And so, they still know they're going to die, but they're just not fearful of it. So that's the difference between sattva and tamas. Now rajas, well, let me explain. So rajas, sattva comes from truth. Okay, we do sattva things because it's the truth of who we are. Tamas means dark. Okay, we do tamas things to avoid darkness, to avoid pain and suffering. Rajas is the most interesting of the three. Rajas means mist. It's like when it's all misty and you can't quite see clearly. And it's really interesting to help us understand rajas. We see Mercury and Venus are the rajas planets. Okay? Who are these guys? Well, Mercury is Lord Vishnu, and Venus is Lakshmi, his consort. And in Hindu philosophy, in Vaishnava philosophy, which is where astrology comes from, Vishnu manifests everything in the world, and he is the omnipotent, omnipresent, omnipowerful aspect of God that makes everything happen. So, through Mercury, everything in life is happening. Through Vishnu, everything is happening. Me talking to you is Vishnu talking to Vishnu, according to Vaishnava philosophy. And our individual egos think it's me, Ernst, talking to you, Fred and Bob and Sam. But really, it's just Vishnu talking to Vishnu. So Mercury, Lord Vishnu, that's how he set up the universe. But through Mercury, through Raja's Mercury, we give everything an individual identification, a name. Mercury rules names. You're Bob, Sally, and Fred. I'm Ernst. So now, I'm no longer Vishnu talking to Vishnu. I'm Ernst talking to Bob, Sally, and Fred. And whoever else. And Raja and all these cool Hindu names that are certainly out there watching. And that's the mist. The mist is me thinking I'm talking to you. When really it's Vishnu talking to Vishnu. And it's like that in all things. So, if I'm going to go to the store, I have the choice of going to Safeway, Albertsons, or the health food store. And I'm going to choose one of those stores. I'm going to think, I'm going to go to the health food store because I want to eat good today. And I decided that I made the choice to eat good. But the fact is, I went to go to the health food store instead of Safeway, Albertsons, because God made me eat good. I had no choice. It was destined for me to walk into the health food store. But I think I made the choice. Okay? So Rajas makes us think we make a decision or a choice. When in fact, the decision or choice has already been made. And then we just come up with a reason for it. I was meant to go to the health food store, but my brain says, Rajasly, miss the truth of that I'm just destined to go to the health food store, and says, I'm going to the health food store because I want to eat healthy today. Another day I might want to go, I'm going to Safeway because Safeway has the best donuts. In fact, the health food store doesn't even sell donuts. So today I'm going to Safeway. So we always give ourselves a reason why we do something. And that's the rajas, that's the mist. We have a reason we make our decisions, we have a reason we make our plans, and we think we're making our plans, and we think we're making our decisions, but that's all mystic. Vishnu is doing everything as us to everybody else. And we just come up with a convenient excuse for why this happened or why we're doing this action. So Venus and Mercury are these two planets that do that. Venus represents our choices. Every choice we make is governed by Venus. I come to a crossroads. Albertsons, health food store. I'm going to go left or right. And I evaluate my choices and I choose with Venus. And I go that way and my choice makes sense to me and I feel happy with that choice and I do it. But that's the mist. There was no choice. I was going to the health food store. So Venus gives the illusion of choice when what happens is destiny. Okay? It's in all of our things. We say, well, I can take the job in New York or the job in San Francisco. And then we look, well, New York's more expensive. I'm closer to good beaches by San Francisco. But when it comes to art, New York is sort of more worldly, whereas San Francisco is more San Francisco. I think being more worldly art center is more important to me than a local, really powerful art center like San Francisco, so I'm going to New York. And so the artist makes the decision to go to New York. And that was his rationale, his choices that he used, how he evaluated his choices. And he chose the thing that was most worthwhile to him, and then rajasically believes he made the choice. No, he was meant to go to New York, he went to New York. Now why did he go to New York? Because of what was innate within him that drew him to New York. And then he makes up choices and ideas about why that is. But simply because Vishnu wants to go to New York as that artist, so the artist goes to New York. End of story. But Venus makes it seem like we're having an active choice in this, okay? Mercury is all about planning. Okay, Mercury is the planner. I'm going to travel 500 miles the first day and I'm going to stay at this hotel, so I got to make reservations. Okay? And then I'm going to ask my girlfriend to marry me a week later when we get to the top of that mountain peak. And then we're going to talk about when we're going to get married, and we're definitely going to get married. We both know we love this part of New Zealand, so we're going to get married in New Zealand, even if our relatives don't want to come. So they plan out their lives. And they say, this is how I all planned it. No, that's not how it all happened. What happened was, on this and this date, they had the fate to get engaged. On this and this date, they had the fate to get married. And the people who couldn't come all the way to New Zealand didn't have the fate to be at their marriage. People who could come to the marriage had their fate to come to the marriage. There was no plans actively being made. The plans were all made by Vishnu. Vishnu arranged everything. But Mercury makes us think we're making the plans. So Mercury and Venus together make us think that we're doing everything in the world, when in fact Vishnu is doing everything. And through that misting and keeping us from having a clear vision of truth, which is simply Vishnu is doing Vishnu. So that's that simple. So whether a person does a sattvic thing or a tamas thing, whether they meditate because they're scared of being depressed, or they meditate because they're just so inspired to be in touch with God, they make the rajasic decision to meditate. So rajas is always part of either one of these. I decided I'm going to meditate because I'm depressed and not happy if I don't. Or I decide I'm going to meditate because I'm really inspired to do it. Okay? Rajas happens, it's because action is the only thing possible. There's no such thing as inaction. Even not acting is taking the action of no action, right? Even say I'm just going to sit here and do nothing is an action. And the idea that we make the choice or the decision or the plan for that action is rajas. When actually it's Vishnu doing Vishnu. So really, the critical thing is the rajas. It's coming to understand that it's Vishnu doing Vishnu. That, like the Bible says, God is omnipotent, omnipresent, and omniscient, and therefore controls my every action. That's the important mist to see through. And once a person sees through that mist, they see a true vision of God in the world, as God doing everything that's done in the world to everybody who is God in the world. And that's what Vishnu devotees strive for. And that's, Mercury and Lakshmi, Vishnu's consort, are these two planets. They want to see past that myth to the truth of who the doer really is. And ultimately, all spirituality allows a person to have some kind of realization along those lines, of seeing God in their daily lives as a force in one's daily life that's responsible for everything that happens in their daily life and in the world. But the Rajas, the mist, hides all that. It makes us think we're doing things because if we don't, we suffer, or we're doing things because we're inspired to it. So the key to doing anything purely is to get the ego out of the way, to get the mist out of the way, to get rid of the Rajas. And through practicing whatever practices one does in their spiritual life, to see past the mist. It's the Rajas, the mist, that creates the ignorance, which is the only sin, is the ignorance of thinking that oneself is the doer, of thinking I and mine. And that's what Rajas does. So if we want to say there's a bad guna, we say it's Rajas, which is the guna that makes us think we're responsible for what we're doing, or that we make the choice for what we're doing. We're making the choice in accordance with God's will. And that brings up a whole philosophy of just how twisted is God's vision for the world when you think of all the crazy things that happen. But yes, it is just that twisted. Okay? And that's why mythology is so twisted. All right? Okay, so those are the three gunas. I hope you understand those now. Now, when you approach an astrologer, just like everything else, you can approach an astrologer as Sattva, Rajas, and Tamas. Now, I want to talk about Rajas a little bit more. Like I said, inaction is impossible. There's only action is possible. Rajas-motivated action, always though being linked to Sattva and Tamas, is also the simple action of doing something because it's available to be done. Not really doing it because if you don't do it, you'll suffer. And not really doing it because you're totally inspired to it, but just doing it because it's happening. And that usually means because it's a fad. Like right now, there's so many people doing yoga. Some of those people are doing it because they want to remove themselves from unhappiness. Some people are doing it because they're fully inspired to realize God. But a large portion are doing it because it's a fad. It's just, there's time in life, and this is just what the thing to be done is. It's just the cool thing to do yoga now. It's the current fad. Same with clothing. Why am I wearing this? Not me, because I don't care. I don't even look in the mirror. But it takes someone who's trying to fit in socially and be stylish. They choose a clothes because it's what's fashionably and stylish. They don't think, oh, this is what I would love to make and or design as a clothes. They go, oh, this is sort of what's in. This is what we're wearing. So Rajas is also just doing what's normally done. Not due to removing pain or not due to a deep inspiration, but just because it's just the way things are done. Everyone kind of goes to yoga now, so they go to yoga. It's just a cultural sort of cool thing to do. Okay? So that's also the Rajas part. So when a person goes to an astrologer, he can come as a Sattvic, Rajas, or Tamas way. Now, my favorite clients, the ones that I find the most fun to work with, are those that come with a Sattvic way or a Tamas way. I really like when people come to me out of a Tamas motivation. They come and they say, I'm really sick. I need to get better. What can I do? I do medical astrology. So they're coming because they're ill. Or they're coming because my heart's broken. I'm in so much pain and that's why I'm here. Okay? I like helping people. I like to help people feel good. I like giving people things that they can do to help them feel better, to improve their health, to help them get insights about their relationship that's broken their heart. That's fun for me to do. I love it when people come to me with their problems. I'm a problem solver. I love fixing things. So I love those cases. The more extreme, the better. The more miserable you are, the more inclined I am to put you at the top of my queue. Okay? So, people come to an astrologer because they're suffering. Okay? That's one reason. Anytime you go to an astrologer because you're hurting and you need to remove yourself from pain, whether a disease, an emotional pain, whatever, you're coming out of a Tamas reason. Okay? Then some people come out of a Sattvic reason, which means they just have this kind of dig. I just have to know what astrology has to say about myself. It's just something that's always been in me to want to know more about astrology, to see what's happening, okay? To see what astrology is saying about me. And they usually just want to learn about themselves in the context of the greater whole. And these people are really great to do readings for. These are the people that when they come, it's most readily to make these amazing predictions. You're going to become an astrologer and write 5 books or something like that. Like Noel Todd was told, although I don't know how many books the astrologer told him he would write, but it was a lot. So people just come out of this inspiration to know about themselves. And that's a great way to come to a reading. You'll get a lot out of your reading if you come with that attitude, just to see what the gods have to say about your life through your horoscope. Okay? And then there's the people who come with the Rajas motivation. So they're coming with the idea that I want to plan my life better. And by knowing my life, I can plan it better. That's as misted as you can possibly get. If you know about your life, because it's predicted as truthful fate, then what's the point of trying to change it, right? If it's fate, or it's not fate. If it's not fate, why do you need to know about it? If it is fate, it's fate. So why do you need to know about it until it happens? Okay? But a lot of people come to an astrologer thinking, if I get astrologically help, I'll make more money, and I'll have a better job, and they just think they can have this better life because the astrologer tells them in advance what's going to happen. Honestly, if you're coming to me for that reason, you're going so far to the bottom of the queue that I'm probably never, ever going to get to you. Because to me, Rajasic astrology is just an utter waste of my time and your time, because it's not real. You don't improve your life because you know your future. Okay? You improve your life by knowing yourself and understand and doing charity and kindness and achieving merit. You improve your life by becoming a better person. A better person achieves more merit. More merit equals better life. Okay? And people will become a better person when they suffer the pains of being a bad person. So tamasic, they come for a Tamas reason. And people become a better person because they're inspired to learn more about themselves through a sattvic motivation to come to an astrologer. But people, when they come with a rajas motivation, because they want to make better decisions in their life, when indeed they're not even making decisions, they just think they are because the rajas has misted their consciousness, there's no point in doing a reading. Because what's fated is going to happen. The decisions they're going to have are going to be decisions they're going to make. And knowing about that future is not going to make a bit of difference. So why waste the words and the money and the time? Okay? The Rajas people are the people who are most unhappy with the readings they get. The people who come with the Rajas motivation. And again, you might come with a sattvic one time, but then a Rajas another time. Most people, the first time they come to an astrologer, they usually come for sattvic or tamas. But then after seeing it work, then they start thinking, how else can I make everything perfect? And they come with the Rajas motivation. And then they start getting smashed by astrology. They start getting bad readings that don't work for them, and contrary readings from different people. The reason that is, because if you come with a Tamas problem, you're suffering over something, there's a saying that the answer, the cure, is always there with the suffering. The solution is always there, hand in hand with the problem. So at a time in your life where the problem is kicking your butt, the solution is readily available. The gods are just waiting to hand it to you. So when you go to an astrologer, the gods give it to you. Okay? And you get a great reading. When a person approaches an astrologer with a sattvic motivation to learn about themselves, well, that's the purpose of life, learning about oneself. And the gods are always willing to be the most truthful and honorable and not be slippery little critters if we come to them appealing just to know the truth more about ourselves. But when we come to the gods so that we can plan our lives, well, like one of my friends used to say, if you want to make God laugh, tell him what you're going to do in the future. So the gods have a sense of humor about that. When you start coming so you can plan your life better, they just start rolling around and laughing and making jokes about your future. And so the astrologer starts saying things about your future that make no sense and don't come true. Okay? So people who come with the Rajas motivation usually don't get great readings because the gods don't want us to know every step of the way. They don't want us to ruthlessly plan our life in black and white. The gods want us to live with inspiration and excitement and enthusiasm, and most importantly, with courage, to understand, to have faith in oneself and faith in God, which is the very same thing, that no matter what happens in life, we can handle it. And not only can we handle it, but whatever happens in life, we can become better through it. No matter the tragedy, no matter the loss, no matter the suffering. The gods want us to have that attitude. When we come with the Tamas reason and we're suffering and we say, I need help, I got cancer, the gods want to help. They're like, okay, this is your chance to be better. This is your chance to get through something hard and be a better person as a result. Or you come and say, I'm brokenhearted and nobody loves me. The astrologer is like, this is your chance to learn to be a more fulfilled individual who's not dependent on other people's feelings for you. This is your chance to be better. So they help you. Okay? And when you come with the Sattvic motivation, the gods are always happy to help and give you a good reading through the medium of the astrologer, because they're like, great, you understand that what's important is knowing yourself and understanding yourself, so sure, we're here to help you. But when you come and you tell the gods, I want to plan my life, so I answer my 20 questions, so I can jump through every little loophole and have a perfect little life, they're like, why should we do that? If we do that, you won't learn anything about yourself. You won't become a better person. And so we're going to tell the astrologers to tell you all kinds of wacky things. And every astrologer is going to tell you something totally different. And you're just going to be wasting your money. But hey, the astrologer got to eat, so it's not all time wasted. And then they're going to laugh at you and let you go on your miserable, merry way down the road. Okay? So, approach an astrologer to know about yourself, to understand yourself, to become who you are, which also means, what should I be doing in this world? Sometimes we just want to find our true place in the world, but we don't know it. Go look. And come when you're having troubles, when you need solutions to your problems. Not when you want to just be coddled, but when you want real solutions, that if you do this, you will become better, and your life will be better, and you'll remove yourself from this pain. Come to an astrologer when you're feeling that. But if you're coming because you want to dictate and plan your life to be a better life, you're going to be in for a lot of frustration and irritation with what you hear from astrologers. It's the people who contact me and said, I've had 10 readings and none of them were right, are always the people who come with the Rajas motivation, because they want to hear the plan of their life step by step so they can make better decisions. They're going to make the decisions you make. There's no such thing as better decisions. There's only the decisions that Vishnu makes, which are the decisions you make. The people who come with the Rajas motivation are just never find happiness there. The people who come with the Sattvic motivation, they find happiness because they learn about themselves. People come with the Tamas motivation, they find a good reading. I always hear people say, yeah, I just had a reading, it just happened. And the astrologer said these things to me that just made so much sense about me and helped me just see myself better and know what I was meant to do. And it was a Sattvic reading and empowered them, inspired them to be better. And then people will call me and say, I went to so-and-so astrologer and he really helped me with my problem. I hear that all the time from astrologers, from clients who go to other astrologers, or people say, I went to this astrologer and he always helped me solve my problems, but he died. So now can you do a reading or something like that? But the people who call me and say, I want to know this so I can plan a better life, and they always say, invariably, and I've been to 5 other astrologers and none of them have been right. Okay? That's just my experience. Now sometimes a person will get a good Rajas reading. The astrologer will take their 20 questions and answer 18 of them right. And if the astrologer is doing that, that's really, really amazing, because that will hardly happen. But it does happen, so there's nothing wrong with going to an astrologer with this attitude. But realize, if that is your attitude, you're approaching astrology with mist, with a clouded vision. And therefore, your vision will be clouded when you leave. Okay? If you approach an astrologer with an open vision and a vision to better yourself, you'll leave as a better person. Okay? So approach an astrologer with your problems that you want to work on and solve. And approach an astrologer to know yourself. And then you'll get the most out of it. And then the astrologer, while he's doing that, will make these amazing predictions. And just during the reading, he'll say, and you know what? You're going to get married next June. And you're like, no way, that's impossible. Yeah, next June you find yourself getting married. The best predictions will come naturally out of the reading. The worst predictions come when you come with a rajasic attitude with 20 questions. So at that point, the gods have no mercy. The gods decide to play tricks on you and play with you and goof with your life. And you will just waste your money. Okay, enough on that. Next video I'm going to talk about all the different things you can approach an astrologer with. What can you actually do with astrology? There's a lot of cool things you can do that people have no idea. That you could be going to an astrologer to help with things you have no clue about. That could be done with astrology. So that'll be the next video in this series. All right, thank you.